Hello! Today is July 3rd, 2022. It is a Sunday, and this is once again another episode of Misfits of the Galaxy, a vlog series which I ramble and amble about uh, a campaign setting I hope to run for my fellow podcast members of the Misfits of the Galaxy podcast. If you haven't heard of us before, we've been a podcast group for a few years now. We playing in a campaign made by our DM Mike in a world called Vertes, and we are currently in the second season of it, having taken a hiatus for a while between the two seasons, leaving the game in on a cliffhanger after the first. Stakes are getting higher, things are getting more intense. If you want to check it out, we'd love to have you. I'll put a link down below. Beyond that, we've recently transitioned into a Twitch live stream format as well, so you can digest our content in multiple media formats. If you want to tune in live, we will be on mostly every Tuesday, pretty much. About 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time PM, of course, going all the way to about 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you there. But anyways, I digress. Let's get into the meat of the topic today. Today isn't like the normal episodes in the sense that I don't have a very specific topic in mind. Instead, I'm just doing a bit of catch up and doing a little bit of errata work with the setting as a whole in hopes of fitting things in and updating names and all that sort of stuff. So the Necropolis world is the first one up on the block. It is now called Mortis instead of Orcus or whatever. So it's called Mortis because I kind of like that instead. It's still got the skull of Orcus on it as a like temple to death and what have you. Because I thought that was a real nifty idea. The second thing that's been updated is in the Elven Empire, which I'm going to change the name of the empire. I just haven't decided as yet because I like the fact that we have the Averrant theocracy, and I kind of want something with a similar name because the Averrant isn't just a race, but a ideal and a philosophy and a religion. Um, According to the Averrant, at the very least. Sort of like in the same way that the Kunari are for Dragon Age. It's the Kun isn't just for a particular species or race. It's quite encompassing of all races. It's just that there's one specific race that people identify as Kunari because they're the most prolific of that species. So among the elves, their home star system is the Arvindor system, and I finally renamed the fourth world of the Arvindor system to Fenimar, which is the forested world of the Wood Elves. Additionally, there are some swamplands in the on Fenimar, which uh, become the location of a offshoot species of wood elves that are more familiar with the swamps and practice a little bit of necromantic magic, to say the very least. I'll probably put more details about them in another episode. Um, so in Fenimar's orbit is Arianus, the home world, or a low gravity moon that is the inhabited by the Av- Avariel, the winged elves, and there's also a small population of Aarakocra and Owlin in there. So that's an update to the setting that I thought I'd mention. Let's see. What else is there to note? That's pretty much. Oh, yes, I've decided that the human civilization is called the hegemony of man, and it encompasses a multitude of worlds. It's fairly fractured actually, and many of the worlds it's not just humans, it's all sorts of species and near humans and other species are live there as well. uh, uh, just like the name implies, uh, the human species, these are human dominant worlds, or near human dominated worlds, where they make up at least 70% of the sentient species of said worlds. And it's a large empire that's in a civil war right now, and uh, with multiple political factions trying to seize power at this point. So it's one big mess, but it's going to be a fun mess for players who are going to want to play in a political scheming setting. I'll flesh out some more details later on it. I just haven't gotten around to it as of yet. So those two things have been mentioned. The big thing of note, I guess, that mechanics wise, that I'd like to mention is I'm well, I don't know if it's mechanic. It's a bit story based. As I mentioned before, the abyss spilled out the um, into the reality, and there was a great war between like gods, celestials, primordials, demons, devils, you name it. I guess you call it a divine war, right? Or a god war. Countless gods and demons and that all ended up biting the bucket, right? In this big, massive war, which is why most gods tend to focus on a single world nowadays. They want because that particular war taught them the price and the folly of stretching their influence and power so very thin. So throughout the verse, there are places where, like the head of or skull of Orcus, right? And there are other places like that throughout the verse where the remains of primordials and gods and that kind of like float in the cold, empty void of space, left untouched for eons and what have you. In many cases, these are fonts of power that that people can draw upon. Similar to, there's a particular novel series or series called the Magitech Chronicles. Uh, they are by Chris Fox, and in that there are the remains of various gods from a great god war scattered throughout the universe, and people go to them to learn to become wizards effectively, right? Sees these as wizards in that setting or have a connection to divine power, and each particular deity or that exemplified a specific type of power, and you see it, and then by going to them and facing the challenges there, you can seize a small bit of the divine spark for yourself. I like that idea. I'll put links to his books down below, but I think I'm going to implement that. And the way I'm going to go about implementing that is there's going to be like these, like I said, the head of Orcus, and which would obviously be connected to death, and other places throughout the verse that are very similar. Some are known quantities and are closely guarded secrets, or heavily guarded, and quite known to the public. Some of the empires or civilizations throughout the verse might actually use these fonts of power to maintain their influence and authority throughout a sector. but like the brass tacks of the matter, the the mechanics behind it are going to be, if a character gets to one of these fonts of power and seeks to take or take a portion of that divine spark for themselves, they'll have to go through the various tests and trials, which can be anything from like a seemingly endless demon host army or demon horde that is seeking their destruction, to like facing off against that and somehow making your way through to various like deadly labyrinths with filled with traps and puzzles and what have you. Regardless, if you manage to get to the source of the divine power, you can take a spark of it unto yourself, and that spark manifests as mechanically as an aberrant dragon mark. I might rename that particular feat for this purposes, but yeah, you'll get the aberrant dragon mark feat for free, and um, you get you with that you would get your con would boost by 1 to a maximum of 20. You get a cantrip of your choice. Hopefully, and most likely linked to that particular god's aspect or influence, and same with like a first level spell as well. In fact, I might assign said spell and said cantrip instead. That might make more sense. I like the idea of the various flaws to them, the Aberrant Dragonmarks. I'll probably keep them where it's like you have a spark, a divine spark, and animals are now uneasy around you for obvious reasons, etc., etc. Um, it will manifest as a physical um, uh, stigmata, brand, tattoo, scar, something similar to that effect that people in the know and making a reasonable religion roll would be able to identify what it is and what it represents. And some religions, like the Ave Ra's worship of the sun, this is having such a brand or mark is heretical. Is heretical, obviously, and would very likely have you burned. Uh, I'd say the burned at the stake, but it's not actually the stake. It's burned by the sun, I guess, would be a more apt descriptor. I'm also going to put that option into the that's associated with it. The option of the greater aberrant powers, where there's a 10% when you hit 10th level, and every level after that, there's a 10% chance of you earning a epic boon. This is for me, in my idea, this would be your character having the divine spark within them and slowly nurturing it over time, and only to reap the rewards later on. And considering how powerful those epic boons can be, and I'll probably add some more possibilities to the list as well, it can be it could be quite astounding, to say the very least, as to like how powerful a character can get with them. And the other thing I'm playing around with is you can only have one aberrant dragon mark at a time. But I'm thinking of the idea as once it's evolved into the greater aberrant powers, you can actually go seize another divine spark. The entire idea is that there's a small group of individuals in the verse who are trying to hop from the body of one dead god to another, or dead primordial, and steal a small portion of its power to ensure that they're not completely consumed by it, and are trying to effectively ascend to godhood, or at least demigodhood status themselves. I think that would be a really I think I could definitely do a campaign plot around that, or maybe just in several adventure hooks. And who knows, maybe one of the characters will be pursuing that to some extent or another. Might even be a good reason why, like Mike has suggested that he's interested in playing a witch, which I haven't really gone into details as to what that class does, but I will in a later episode, I assume. And maybe having him already acquired his Aberrant Dragonmark or his Divine Spark, and that being the reason why that he's on the shit list, pardon the language, of the Aberrant Theocracy might be a good idea. Anyways, I think I've rambled a bit long on that particular topic. The last thing is just like some ramblings about uh, war and drafting or drafts in this in the verse at large. So wars are typically on a galactic scale. Uh, you can quite easily uh, have battles taking place where the entire populations of worlds are going to war. So the question being, the two, as I stated before, it's the Elven Empire and the Aberrant Theocracy are the biggest power players out there, and they're currently in a Cold War. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not influencing smaller civilizations to go to war as proxies for them. The same way the U.S. and the USSR did during their Cold War. Um, so with that in mind, I'm just thinking, okay, well, aside from draft, like showing up at a world, and like like having people enlist, there in many instances, drafts might be required, where like the every able man and woman between a certain ages, that a certain percentage of the population needs to go off to war that's in good health. Uh, I'm thinking that other methods that they might do is they might go to a primitive backwater world and pretty much conscript the entire population, take them off and take them into space and drop them on a world where the conflict's happening after giving them a gun, right? And giving them a rudimentary instructions on which way to point it and how to pull the trigger. That would be, but overall, that would be a waste of resources, to be brutally honest, because you'd have to go to that world, that primitive world, round up those people, bring them to the other world, and during the course of that, you'd actually have to feed them and keep them clothed on a spaceship. Train them enough, give them the basic understanding as to how the guns work, drop them off on that world, and hope that they have enough semblance of order amongst themselves and morale that they don't suddenly turn or order and a high enough morale that they don't suddenly run away or turn on you, right? Like I said, and in most likely instances that they're nothing more than cannon fodder. It's they get wiped out. Like, it's not very cost effective. What I am thinking is that aside from your regular drafts and enlistment drives and what have you on more civilized worlds, they might eventually, some civilizations may actually utilize something similar to a more advanced version of simulacrums or clones, similar to Star Wars Clone Wars, where they have this is this is the ideal soldier we need for this particular or the this group here are all ideal soldiers for what we need for this war. So we're just going to make carbon copies of each and every one of them, a few hundred of each, sort of deal. I think that could work, and that could be very interesting, especially if one of the characters in the party is a cloned trooper and doesn't know it. until later on. It's a big reveal. But like I said, that's just a rambling right now. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with that or whether I'm actually going to implement it in the setting or not. As I said before, this particular episode is more of rambles and rambling and ambling, but is doing some updates to some previously established things, as well as discussing briefly about divine sparks and the like. But anyways, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the matter. We've gone well into I think this is episode 26. I think. Don't quote me on that. Let me just check very quickly. It's hard to keep track of how many episodes I've done. No, this is episode 27. Wow. Managed to do 27 episodes of this so far. I'm fairly impressed with myself. Uh, I think next week I'll see if I can get somebody else to join me and maybe get some input as to what they'd like to see in the campaign and that. Maybe I can snag a Jake or an Erica or maybe even a Jenny. Who knows? If not, I can always see if I can get Adam or Mike to jump back on there. Although, like, truth be told, it's like Adam was on something like about 7 episodes ago, and Mike was on, I think, 5 episodes ago. So it might not actually be a very good idea to bring them on so soon. Maybe wait until like episode where the episodes are in the 30s or something like that. Anyways, I've been rambling for over 21 minutes now. I'm sorry. This isn't the best episode I've done. Truth be told, and I'll be quite honest about that. But I am still trying to crank these out, and as time progresses, I'm finding myself with having to, rather than building large swaths of a tapestry, I'm having to like narrow my focus down and fill in a few of the lesser details here and there. However, I think that's all for now. So until next week, I hope your D20s all come up a critical. Take care.